Yauke Husang Yatgoring Hogomba Akun Him Bolo Chikirikang Sorotaka Yastawe Bate Sadwa Maha Sadwa Hota Charasak Nasan Dogldoro Basan Share Hogun In Himeng Hugulwe Sharing Hogum Yat.
All of us, we recite the Gadam Hajam prayer in this degenerate age to make this freedom, the life of freedom and opportunity, a meaningful one. We get rid of the 8 worldly concerns and engage in learning and practice. And so this was said by Master Tsongkhapa in the 100 deities of Tushita. So to be broadly learned, extensively learned, and striving in practice. So, though, however learned you may be, if you use it to gain fame and name and so forth, then that doesn't, the Dharma doesn't turn into a practice of Dharma as such. And so your practice should not be mixed with the 8 mundane concerns. The Buddha himself didn't have the intention to indulge in the 8 worldly concerns when he started his journey along the path to enlightenment. And then similarly, Master Tsongkhapa, after his birth in his native land in Amdo, and then he traveled to central Tibet and pursued his studies in different monasteries, and also sat for examinations in different monasteries. So he wasn't indulging in 8 mundane concerns, but because it is important to practice what he had learned, he went to Ulka and then engaged in purification and accumulation. And then there is a hermitage called Lading, so he meditated there on emptiness. And he had a vision of Nagarjuna, Master Nagarjuna, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, and surrounded by 5 of his disciples. And so that would be either a dream, or we could call it also a vision, pure vision. And amongst his disciples who were surrounding Master Nagarjuna, Buddha Palita touched Buddha Palita commentary on Rinpoche's Tsongkhapa's head. And so the next morning, when he read the commentary of Buddha Palita commentary, so when he read the commentary on if the self were to be distinct, separately distinct from the aggregates, Master Tsongkhapa had this insight into dependent origination being devoid of independent existence. And so he had this clear realization of emptiness, whereby he got rid of all his doubts about emptiness and all the reification. So if you look at the Master Tsongkhapa's writings, there are on Madhyamaka philosophy. He had written the insight sections of the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment, and then the intermediate stages of the path to enlightenment, and the commentaries on Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Madhyamaka Avatara, and then the distinguishing the definitive and provisional meanings of the sutras. And so if you look at these writings, you will be able to see how well Master Tsongkhapa had understood the Madhyamaka view. And in the Madhyamaka Avataras, chapter 6, the verse number 34 down says that if you assert things to have any independent or self-defined characteristics, then there would be 4 logical absurdities that you would have to face.
So these 4 absurdities that are mentioned, I reflect on them on a daily basis. Which says that the Arya being's direct perception of emptiness would be a destroyer of entities and so forth. So, of course, there are Panchen Lobsang Yishi's Nyurlam, the swift path, and Panchen Peldenish's Lobsang Chogyan's Delam, the path of bliss, seems to have been written not in accordance with the Kadamba tradition of scholastics, but following the Kadamba tradition of the Pith instructions. And Jerambuche, in his Lamrim, the stages of the paths, mentions that the teaching of the 4 Noble Truths was taught by the Buddha as the foundational teaching in all his teachings, whether there are the basic vehicle teachings or the universal vehicle teachings. So he mentions that we should be able to give teaching on the Buddha Dharma within this framework of the 4 Noble Truths. So sometimes we are rather carried away by small texts, the so-called Mengakpa and the Pith instruction teachings of Lamrim or in the Kadam tradition and so forth. So I will go through the praise to the 17 Nalanda masters, rather giving brief, short comments. But I would like to begin from the colophon. So, thus, the foremost sages of the noble land of India, as mentioned above, have composed numerous excellent, meaningful treatises that grant insight to those who think critically about the profound and vast teachings of the fully enlightened supramundane Victor, the Buddha. To this day, even after nearly 2,550 years have passed, those treatises survive intact for us to study, contemplate, and meditate on. Therefore, I am grateful to those masters who were the cream of sages and aspire to follow them in my practice with unflinching faith. And then next, I write, at the present time when the world has made great progress in the fields of science and technology and we are distracted and preoccupied by the hustle and bustle of our lives, it is extremely important that followers of the Buddha should have faith based on understanding of what he taught. Therefore, in analyzing his teachings closely with an unbiased and So here, unbiased, as it is mentioned in the 400 verses by Aryadeva, where he mentions being unbiased and being intelligent and an aspirant of liberation or enlightenment. So when you are unbiased, you will be able to see what is more beneficial or not. And then, though you may be biased, but if you are not able to differentiate between what is the right teaching or wrong teachings, and so you need to have intelligence. And even though you may be intelligent, but if you don't have the aspiration to pursue the path, then it doesn't help as well. And so, with an unbiased and so in analyzing his teachings closely with an unbiased, without any prejudice, you should analyze the teachings. And so, with an unbiased and inquisitive mind, seeking the reasons that underlie them, so that you do not accept what the Buddha had said on its face value, and you will check what is the reason behind what he has taught and what is the significance. And of course, there are many reasons that are used in the commentaries for the Buddha's teachings regarding the veracity, and developing faith supported by an understanding of those reasons, these excellent texts concerning the profound and vast. Of course, all religious traditions consider faith important, but regarding the Buddha Dharma, there are those types of disciples who are called the ones with not so sharp intelligence. So they are called the followers based on faith, and then there are those who follow based on reason. And so, developing faith supported by an understanding of those reasons, these excellent texts concerning the profound and the vast, by such renowned masters as the 6 Ornaments and 2 Supremes, as well as the Buddha Palita, Arya Vimuktisena, and so forth, are indispensable. With this in mind, I commissioned a new Tsongkhapa painting depicting the 17th scholar adepts of Nalanda. I added 9 other masters of the vast and profound lineages to those portrayed in the traditional painting of the 6 Ornaments and 2 Supremes. Consequently, I was moved to compose an invocation with wholehearted respect to those supreme sages, and some of my aspiring Dharma friends encouraged me, and so this includes Gyabja Tushi Rinpoche, to whom, when I mentioned that I have this wish to write the text, he requested me to do so. Please, this is how it came about that I, the Shakya Bhikshu, Tenzin Gyatso, who am in the back row of those studying the works of these sages, have composed this text illuminating the threefold faith. So, having met with many different people from religious traditions as well as scientists and scholars, so of course, whatever they say, I do not accept right away. I always question their explanations. Even Master Nagarjuna and his disciples and followers have questioned the teaching of the Buddha himself, as we see, don't we? So, I added 9 other masters of the vast and profound lineages of those portrayed traditional painting of the 6 Ornaments and 2 Supremes. Consequently, I was moved to compose this invocation that composed this text, illuminating the threefold faith and invocation of the 17th great and renowned sages of Nalanda, having developed unfeigned conviction in the superb works of these sublime masters. It was completed at Tsongkhapa, Dharamsala, Kangra district, Himachal Pradesh, India, on the first day of the 11th month of the Iron Snake year in the 17th Tibetan Rabjung cycle, corresponding to 15th December 2001 of the Western calendar, 2,545 years, according to the Theravada system, after the Buddha passed away. May peace prevail. So this also gives the background to the writing, the history or story of the writing this praise. So first, I pray to the praise. I make this praise to the Buddha, the founder of the teaching, as Rinpoche says in his praise to the Buddha for teaching the dependent origination, where he says, so since the verse number 54 of this praise to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, where he says, since it is due to my teacher's kindness, I have met with this, and so forth. No, the 53 and 53, sorry. And Master Nagarjuna also makes praise to the Buddha from the perspective of teaching dependent origination, such as his salutation verses of Mula Madhyama Karika. So, of course, we can praise the Buddha from the point of view of his compassion, and also having become having overcome all his defilements in the mind stream and so forth. But these are not used as the point of consideration for praising the Buddha. In the 400 verses, the Arya Deva says that just as the physical faculty permeates all other faculties within us, likewise this ignorance or confusion permeates all other destructive emotions. And then he goes on to say that this should be overcome through the understanding of dependent origination. So, of course, there are the antidotes to different kinds of destructive, afflictive emotions or mental afflictions, but all of them are rooted in the ignorance, and therefore the teachings are given to as a method to uproot this ignorance. So when you delve into this, how the nature of things, you will be able to see how things exist. And so, here in the praise, Lord of Lord, arisen from the compassionate wish to benefit wandering beings, you have attained sublime protection, abandonment, and realization, and liberate sentient beings through teaching dependent arising. So, by teaching dependent origination, helping sentient beings, by teaching dependent arising, is only the Buddha there, not other teachers. I bow to you, conqueror son amongst teachers. I call to mind esteemed Nagarjuna, who wrote the 6 collections of reasoning. In the first, the Mula Madhyama Karika, he mentions things do not arise from self. nor other, nor both, not without causes. So there are 27 chapters in this text, Mula Madhyamaka Karika, fundamental wisdom verses of the middle way. So this is an incredible teaching where he mentions that what is dependently originated is said to be empty, and that is designated, and that is the middle way. And there is nothing which is not dependent. Therefore, there is nothing which is not empty. And then he mentions that liberation is, there is liberation by extinguishing the karma and delusions, and karma and delusions arise from conceptions, and they in turn arise through the elaboration of fabrication, and fabrication is done away by emptiness. And of course, he teaches this profound emptiness in many of his writings, and then regarding the extensive path, he deals with it in the Ratnavali, the precious garland. So praise to the Master Nagarjuna is done, and then next is his disciple Aryadeva. If you look, read Master Aryadeva's 400 verses, it mentions that first get rid of the non-meritorious actions, in the middle get rid of the distorted notion of a self, and then finally get rid of all distorted views. And that someone who is able to do that is a wise one. And so he says, just as eliminating or overcoming this ignorance which permeates all other afflictive emotions, afflictive states of mind, you'll be able to overcome all afflictions. And next is Buddha Palita. He wrote the Buddha Palita commentary to Mula Madhyamaka Karika. So he's an inconceivable master. And next is Master Buddha Bhaviveka. I call to mind Acharya Bhaviveka, erudite master who introduced philosophical view that refuted such extremes as truly exist in production, while accepting commonly verified knowledge and external objects. So, with his founding this his sub-school of Madhyamaka, it helped many disciples or followers of the Madhyamaka system of philosophy who were not able to grasp the point that things are merely designated. And therefore, Master Bhaviveka came up with this idea that things do exist objectively, though they lack any true existence. Next, I call to mind Chandrakirti, who promulgated the complete path of Sutra and Tantra, who was skilled in expounding profound and vast middle way, in which appearance and emptiness eliminate two extremes through dependent arising and the merely conditional nature of things. And so in regard to Tantra, he wrote the Dharamsala, the clear lamp. And in regards to, with regard to Madhyamaka philosophy, he wrote Madhyamaka Avatara and its auto-commentary, as well as Prasanapada, the lucid words. So these are very great writings. So, as I quoted earlier, the verses 34, 35, 36 reject any self-defined characteristic of phenomena. So nothing can be posited from the perspective of things appearing objectively to our perceptions. I call to mind the Bodhisattva Shandideva, skilled in the teaching a host of fortunate disciples, the truly marvelous path of great compassion through versatile means of reasoning, profound and vast. So his writing, entering the Bodhisattva path or practices. So in the central part of Tibet, they didn't used to have a tradition or transmission of this text. And so I took a special interest and made a special effort to receive transmission of this text. And therefore, I received it from Kuno Lama Rinpoche, Tenzin Gyaltsen, and I since receiving the teaching, I always keep the text with me and sometimes read it, and particularly the chapter 6. If you look at the chapter 6, you'll see that anger or hatred is made dumbfounded through versatile reasons. And then chapter 8 makes our self-cherishing attitude dumbfounded. If it says that if you are not able to exchange your own joy and happiness with the suffering of others, leave alone reaching Buddhahood, even in the cyclic existence, you'll not have happiness. And then he mentions that whatever joy and happiness there is in the world comes from wishing others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is comes from wishing oneself to be happy. What more is there need to say? Look at the difference between the Buddha, who became enlightened because of thinking of others, and look at ourselves, the childish, who think of ourselves alone. So all our misfortunes, all the problems and difficulties, the conflicts and so forth in the world arise because of our self-cherishing attitude, thinking only of me, me, me. And therefore, we have all these problems. And so, Master Shandideva mentions, leave alone reaching Buddhahood, even in samsara, there's no happiness. And then Master Rakshita, who introduced the non-dual middle way to suit disciples' mental dispositions, was well versed in differentiating the reasoning of the middle way and valid cognition, and disseminated the teaching of the conqueror in the land of snows. At that time, the Tibetan king Tsongkhapa had invited him to Tibet. And of course, there were other monks from the Chinese tradition in Tibet by that time. And so, because the Tsongkhapa wasn't satisfied with the Chinese tradition of Buddhism, who emphasized meditation, of course, and therefore he thought that to bring Buddha Dharma to Tibet from its original land of origin, which is India. And so he invited Master Shantarakshita, who wrote the Tattva Samgraha, which is the compendium of realities, a book on epistemology. So he's disseminated teaching of the conqueror in the land of snows. So in Tibet, we have the tradition of combining logic and middle way philosophy. This is thanks to, having this tradition is thanks to Master Great Abbot Shantarakshita. And then I call to mind esteemed Kamalashila, who thoroughly explained the stages of meditation on the middle view, free from extremes, and the union of calm abiding special insight according to sutras and tantras. He flawlessly clarified the conqueror's doctrine in the land of snows. So he was a student of Master Great Abbot Shantarakshita, who had advised the Tibetans that there would be a danger of emphasizing on the thoughtless meditation in the future, and therefore Kamalashila, at that time, Kamalashila should be invited to clarify the teaching of the Buddha in the land of snows. I call to mind esteemed Asanga, who Maitreya inspired and looked after, who was adept in disseminating all Mahayana discourses and revealed the vast path, and the conqueror prophesied, as the conqueror prophesied, blazed the trail of the mind only. And then next is Master Azubundu, who, by maintaining the system of 7 treatises of Abhidharma and the non-duality of mind only. So as I mentioned yesterday, if Master Azubundu were here today, living today, I would have to ask him, where is Mount Meru? So it is very clearly mentioned in the Madhyamaka Avatara and its auto commentary that if someone holds a philosophical or a view or a position which is against reason, that should be refuted. And next, number 12, I call to mind esteemed Dignaga, the logician who gave us discerning insight of the fine discrimination by thoroughly opening 100 doors of logic to reveal the system of Buddha's scriptures through empirical reasoning. So he also was a great master who wrote Pramana Samuchaya, the compendium of logic, epistemology, where his salutation verse says, I salute the one who has become an authoritative, a reliable person, and so forth. And next, I call to mind esteemed Dharmakirti, who fathomed the vital points of Buddhist and non-Buddhist modes of logic, granted of conviction in the vast and profound paths of Sotantika and Chittamatra through reasoning, and was adept in expounding the marvelous ways of the Dharma. Next, Vimuktisena, number 14, and then comes Haribhadra. And next, number 16, Gunaprabha. I call to mind esteemed Gunaprabha, excelling in stability and learning, who integrated the intentions of 100,000 categories of Vinaya and in accordance with the Mulasavasavada, thoroughly and unmistakably explained individual liberation. Next is Shakyapprabha, and then comes Master Adisha. I call to mind Joe Adisha, kind Lord, who caused the sage's teaching to flourish in the land of snows, who expounded doctrines vast and profound, complete teaching of the conqueror in the context of parts of persons of 3 capacities. And then verse number 19, and then verse number 20. So, of course, Master Nagarjuna was the one who explicated the teachings contained in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras thoroughly. And therefore, here I mentioned through the understanding of the meaning of 2 truths, the ground reality of how things are, I ascertained by way of the 4 truths, just how beings arrive in and leave cyclic existence. And so, regarding these 4 noble truths, Master Nagarjuna, using, if we study his logic, Madhyamaka logic, as I quoted the lines from Master Aryadeva's 400 verses also. So through understanding the meaning of the 2 truths, the ground reality of how things are, I ascertained by way of 4 truths just how beings arrive in and leave cyclic existence. Thus, valid cognition engenders a firm faith in 3 jewels. So when you reflect on these teachings through which are based on reason, through your logic, you'll be able to see that ignorance is a distorted view of the reality of things. And when you are able to overcome this, then there is a possibility for true cessation. So these lines from the Madhyamaka chapter 6, the last 3 verses, which ends by saying that you'll be able to travel to the other side, the other shore, with both the wings of conventional understanding of conventional reality and ultimate reality, which are like the 2 wings of a swan. And so we should practice the teaching.
시인의 대니 된시에 denshi kowan chukdo chishingi, tsemen changbe gyabsum taibaten talam zawa sukbar chingilos.
So this verse, so inspire me. So when you talk about taking refuge in the 3 jewels, you should be able to do so within the understanding, from within the understanding of the 4 Noble Truths, based on the understanding of the 2 Noble Truths, and inspire me to master renunciation, the mind intent on liberation, total pacification of suffering and its causes, and the uncontrived altruistic awakening mind rooted in compassion, the boundless yearning to protect wandering beings. In the verse number 22, inspire me to gain conviction with effortless ease in the profound points of all the paths of perfection, vehicle, and Vajrayana by listening to, contemplating, and meditating on the meaning of the commentaries of these great pioneers. And then verse number 23. So when we think about liberation or attaining this Buddhahood, we usually take this for granted. But verse number 24, verse number 23 says, "May I, in successive births, perfectly obtain a human life endowed with the 3 trainings, and serve the doctrine as the great pioneers did, by safeguarding the promoting scriptures and insights through explanation and practice." For that, of course, you need to study those writings of these great masters. And then, may all Sangha communities be strengthened by noble, learned practitioners who devote their time in hearing, contemplation, and teaching and practice, and have totally given up wrong livelihood. May this whole wide world be... Oh my gosh. I hear myself. So then the verse number 25 also read. So this is a short explanatory guidance teaching on the 17 scholar adepts of the glorious Nalanda. So as I already read, the colophon. So of course the world is able to communicate with one another. People from different parts of the world are able to communicate with one another. So regarding the other religious traditions, they may have difficulty conversing with the scientists, because of course it's not easy to hold on to that position of saying that everything is done by God. So because we follow reason and logic, it is not difficult for us to have interaction with scientists. So having met with many different scientists from different disciplines, I have found that the scientists also learn from the teaching of the Buddha regarding dependent arising, how things are dependently arisen. And so, for us to have a good conversation or dialogue with the scientists, we should be able to have the knowledge of the Buddha Dharma by studying these writings of the great Nalanda masters, and also to be able to combat our own negative mental afflictions. These texts are... Oh my gosh.
Now we are moving towards to the question and answer session, and please proceed with your questioning.
Are you getting anything? I heard him, but now it's gone. Okay.
So now this time we are inviting the director of Self-Cherishing or Kind Children Care Center to say a vote of thanks.
Дэрхингийн 7 багш танд энэ өдрийн амар амгалангийн эрен мэдчлээ. Эрхэм хүндэд тантай уулзаж учрах их хувь тохиолдол тохиолдсонд би болон ачлал төвхтүүд төрийн бус уулгын нийт хамт олон талархаж байгаагаа илэрхийлье. Манай хамт олонны хувьд зовж яваа хэн нэгэн тусламжийн гараа сунгаж инэрл хайрлахыг хичээдэг бөгөөд Бурхны сургаалд итгэдэг итгэл үнэмшил маань энэ ажлыг тууштай сэтгэл шулуудан хийхэд нөлөөлөж ирсэн билээ. Манай асрамжийн төвөнд үйл ажиллагааг дэмжиж таны илгээсэн хайр хишгийг бид ихэд талархан баярлаж хүлээж авсан. Энэ хайр хишгийг бид шинээр баригдаж буй асрамжийн төвдөө зарцуулсан бөгөөд илүү олон хүн туслах болно гэж тандаа хэлжээ. Тэгээд Далай багш тандаа бид бүхэн баярлаж талархснаа илэрхийлж байна.
First of all, my most heartful greetings to your Holiness. It is the rarest opportunity for me and my project team to meet you through this live streaming. We are truly happy. Our NGO aims at helping the destitute with a compassionate approach. Also, being Buddhist encourages us to work with such determination, I think. We were extremely happy to receive your heartily support, which is being used for a new construction being built. This will tremendously help expand our activities more and steadily to benefit many more people now. Please kindly accept our most sincere gratitude, Your Holiness.
Our NGO is a nursing home and provides residential care to the elderly and people living with disabilities with the motto, be compassionate, share it with others, no matter how small. Happiness never decreases by being shared. It is a care and protection center founded by an ordinary family that provides care and support to the most vulnerable, older and disabled people who have no home and no one to look after them. Today, more than 50 people live and receive care at the home. They see and trust us like parents, siblings, or children, and they live there in peace without the fear of tomorrow. Today, there are 35 orphanages for children and 12 nursing homes for seniors in Mongolia, but there are no residential care centers for people living with disabilities. Our ultimate goal is to create a residence with its own independent facilities that can provide a high level of long-term personal or nursing care. We have been working tirelessly to achieve this goal since 2015. In 2019, we had the rare opportunity to host a visit from Venerable Monk Lamingigeng to introduce our operations. Then, Lamingigeng informed the Dalai Lama of what we were striving for. We had a great opportunity to connect with people around the world. The Dalai Lama extended a helping hand and donated $50,000, with which we laid the foundation for a new facility for our care center. Thank you to the Dalai Lama, the highest-ranking spiritual leader of Buddhism, for entrusting us the Gaden Phodrang Foundation of the Dalai Lama, and to the staff of Lamingigeng Mongol Sunchoi NGO in Mongolia.
As human beings, we depend on a community or a society. We were born alone, but we cannot live alone. We were born from our mother, and there must also be other relatives and near and dear ones around us when we were born. And then today in the world, we are connected with the whole world, and therefore being compassionate and being kind to others is something that we should do, because we are dependent on others in the society or communities we live in and in this world. As in the Lama Chepa, Guru Puja says, self-cherishing attitude is the source of all misfortunes, whereas cherishing all mother sentient beings is the source of all good. And so we do not need to talk about north and south or east and west and so forth. All of us are interconnected today. And therefore, we are, from the point of view of the climate change and economy and so forth, we are all connected, and therefore we must look after others for our own benefit, and especially we should look after those who are needy, sick, destitute. So there are many, of course, many different organizations which cater to the needs of such people, but we must do our best so that we can reduce the gap between rich and poor and bring happiness, well-being to the entire humanity. Not talking about nirvana or life after death and so forth, but taking care of their needs regarding the necessities of life, food, clothing, shelter, and so forth. And therefore, we should do our best to look after and take care of those people who need the most help.
and especially the elderly and infirm, though they do not want happiness, they don't want suffering and want happiness. Because of their age, they are not able to be self-sufficient, and therefore the old people's home and institutions taking care of these elderly people are very important to look after these needy people. No. Question number 1.
So first, question is by Tsok, who is from Ulaanbaatar.
Самбано дэрхэгээ далаа багштай мен төшөөлье. Далаа багш минь мэлби бат.
Greetings to Your Holiness. How do we get rid of anger and selfishness quickly, especially when I can't stand anger? For that, those who have belief in religion,
Who's from Ulaanbaatar.
When we face problems and difficulties, people, of course, keep their faith in God or others. Those who do and then pray to God and so forth, whereas those non-believers will not do this. So Mongolians and also here in India, we have different religious traditions, and Christians have their own place of worship or God. So during our difficult times, this practice of praying to the God and so forth has been there for thousands of years. So for both the people who are believers or non-believers, for example, for us, regarding us Buddhists, we can make offerings to the images of the Buddhas and also seek advice and also ask for divination from masters and so forth. Of course, these may look from the perspective of logic and epistemology, they may seem to be blind faith. And then especially those who have no faith in religion, I mean, our divination and the methods of investigation into the things, these methods, so the Buddha and also the Dharma protectors, so we use these divinations and so forth. So of course the divinations and so forth are, this is question number 2 actually, are based on the teachings of the Buddha, and then we should also have a qualified person who can do divination for us. So not everyone who has the name or title of a Lama or a teacher, a master, can do that. So otherwise it would be a blind faith. As our knowledge increases, we should knowledge about the Buddha and so forth, the Buddha's teaching and so forth. Then we should first check the person from whom we ask for divination. Otherwise, it would be too we would be too lax in following the teaching without doing an investigation. And so we do, when we are pursuing something, we would also give thoughts to them, reflect on them, and check what's the pros and cons. So otherwise, without doing any investigation, just asking for divinations and so forth would be taking things for rather granted. So of course, when people are desperate, they say, "Oh my God," and they call on their God. But in general, the people in the West do not just follow on blind faith. They use their human intelligence and reflect on, do investigation and analysis into the nature of things. And then they put effort in order to achieve their goal. So after having done your own study and so forth of the Buddha Dharma, you may ask for divination from others. Just doing it on the basis of blind faith is outdated.
Any, down the Joe, Tagada Jode, the Nickens, Ranjun Kamda, Tendu, Tree, Pension, Nemento, Labor, Goju Cheve, Tablam Yedam, Misu Ranjun Kamla, Juzu, Kanja Sugar.
So this question is about how to take care of our nature. While engaging in mining. So of course this mining for natural resources has been there since old ancient times. So this is, for example, when you go to mine for some minerals or other resources, these resources are something that belongs to the whole people and nation. And then, of course, if you do this mining or deforestation excessively, then there would be imbalance in the nature. So this is happening these days. Because of using coal, there is damage, it damages the environment. And today, people are using solar energy and producing electricity and also wind energy, using windmills. and producing energy and electricity. So if we could use these modern technologies without damaging the environment and nature, it would be good. So to the best of our ability, we should avoid damaging the environment. So when the population of the world was small, of course, it may not have much effect. But today, because of the increase in population of the world, we may cause, if we do things excessively, then it may cause harm to the natural environment.
I
try to do something useful to others, for others, but sometimes my help fails and makes others angry. What can I do at such a time? So human nature, we have different personalities and characters, and also mental dispositions. So because of seeing the different mental dispositions of his followers and disciples, the Buddha gave different teachings in accordance with the Vinaya, the monastic code of discipline, and then the Sutra teachings, for example, the Panchaparamita, the perfection of wisdom teachings, and so forth. So in accordance with the mental dispositions of the disciples, he gave these different teachings. Different teachings. So though you may be trying to help others sincerely and out of their dedication for their well-being, if people show anger, if people become angry with you, you should also try to see whether you need to stay without doing much. As the 8 verses of mind training says, whenever I associate with others, may I look upon myself as the lowest, and so forth. And so you should not be stubborn with your own ideas, but do what is needed
Now the
to
next
help
question
others.
is by Group Dauk from Bayonghongor province.
За дээрхийг таны амрыг алтгая. Асуулт. Нэгүүлсэнгүй сэтгэл шудраг үнэнг амьдралынхаа мөрдлөг болгосон хүмүүс хохирч
What principles of life one should follow in these times when those who believe in compassion, truth, and fairness seem to always become victims, whereas those who are malicious in their cloth deeds, those who are unfair to others, those who abuse others, and those who value money seem to always win and gain in life. So you use the term, it seems that this is happening. So of course this is not reality. In reality, those who abuse power, authority, are not happy because of their ill will or bad intention in their heart. They always are unhappy. And so those people who are also being clever and people will always talk behind them that this person is unjust or the hypocritic. Whereas if you are honest and sincere in what you do, people will find this eventually, and then they will listen and they will believe you. Whereas if you were to become someone whom others suspect, always doubt about your intention and so forth, you will be on the losing end, at the losing end. Next.
So
Mongolians, you are followers of the Buddha Dharma. You are living in a Buddhist country. So, as Buddhists, there were many great Mongolian scholars in the past who studied the great texts and treatises of Buddha Dharma. So who followed the triple process of hearing, listening, or study, reflection, and meditation. And there have been many people who will learn it, as well as humble and kind. So you have such examples from the past.
So
when we talk about religion, we should think of it as a subject for our study, and also something which we can use. We can go together with science. As I said yesterday also, otherwise just believing in the Mount Meru, the four continents and so forth, as we do so when we make mandala offerings, if you just believe the teaching only on the basis of faith, then you may not be able to go on par with others in society today, in this scientific society today. So even scientists do acknowledge the teaching of the Buddha, which is based on logic and reason. So in the past, there were nobody who understood the Buddhist the psychology that is found in Buddhism. And then today, the scientists, and particularly the neuroscientists and so forth, who have studied Buddhism, some of them even are able to accept the teachings of the Buddha. And we should also follow the teaching with understanding, through understanding the teaching by using logic and reason. So Buddhism is something that we can explain through reason and logic, and also you can see how it benefits oneself in transforming oneself when you put them into practice as well. So this will become clear to you, Mongolians, as well. And so you should have faith, which is combined or with or supported by wisdom and understanding of the teaching. So religion is something that is an individual matter. Nobody can force it on others. But when you are in a bad situation, to keep your self composed and calm and retain your peace of mind, religion is helpful, and particularly the teaching of the Buddha. Today we are in the 21st century. In the next 2 centuries, also in the next 2 centuries, the global warming will be greater, perhaps. In our text, there is mention of destruction of the world by fire and destruction of the world by wind, storms. So maybe the global warming today is an indication of such things coming in the future. Some scientists even say that in the next few decades, because of global warming, we will not be able to survive in the world. Of course, the glaciers are melting today, as we see these days. And then because of the global warming, there is shortage of water, scarcity of water as well, which we see today. And so there will be, I think there will be the great change, climate change in the future as well.
추도도 만져வே 여러 조상고 다 지금 군조도 아니
So what is ethics beyond religion? So we believing in past and future lives or God and so forth have to do with religion. Whereas if we think along the line of reasoning where we think of all humanity, that we have to survive and to be, because we need to survive together, and economy is something which doesn't distinguish between this people or that people. So we all are related in that. Just as you need to live and survive, likewise others also need to live and survive, and therefore we should not cause harm to others. So when we talk about set ethics, we are not talking about past and future lives or liberation, nirvana and so forth, but we are thinking of living a life as human beings in this world. So I always say that it's individual matter. It depends on the individuals whether they want to follow a religion or not. But as human beings, because we live together, we need to survive based on love and compassion. As I already quoted Chandideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, if you do not exchange your joy and happiness with the suffering of others, leave alone Buddhahood, reaching Buddhahood, even in cycle of existence, you will not have happiness. So even when you are living in a community or a neighborhood, if there is a huge difference or gap between the rich and the poor, then there would be theft and so forth happening. And so we should do our best to make everyone living in our communities more or less of the same wealth, so that there's not much gap between the rich and the poor. Is that all? Next question.
Now, this is the question and answer session is over. And I would like to thank Your Holiness very much for your precious teachings and profound explanations. Here, I'm announcing that the end of today's session, right now, may your lotus feet be formed in 1,000 eons. May Your Holiness live long to benefit the Buddha Dharma and the sentient beings. Thank you very much.
뭐야? 또 나오래. 둘째, 양선이 저기 선이 남조.
So tomorrow we'll have teaching on the three principal aspects of the path. So see you tomorrow.